Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, Ingenious Thinkers, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tencer, curator of Say Hi to the Future, helping leaders think differently in the face of uncertainty and ambiguity. Better thinking, better outcomes. With me today is Fredrik Härén, a globally recognized author, keynote speaker, and self-described creativity explorer who has spent over 25 years traveling to study human creativity and innovation. He's delivered more than 2,000 talks in over 70 countries, written multiple books, including The World of Creativity and The Idea Book, named one of the 100 best business books of all time. He also inspires audiences to unlock creative potential and embrace a global mindset for change and growth. Fredrik, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Well, hello there, future.
And where do we find you today?
Today I'm actually in a hotel room in Stockholm.
Oh, beautiful. Very beautiful. And it's funny, I haven't been to 70 countries, but I've been to many, dozens and dozens, let's say. And it's funny, I have one, one memory, I was sitting in Corsica, an island obviously off the south of France, writing one summer, writing an article, and I looked around and I go, yeah, I feel so calm and at ease here, and the words were flowing. Do you ever find that in all the travels you have?
I live on an island. That's where I do my writings, actually. And that's where I normally do my thinking. So I totally relate on the idea of, I think I have a small private island, but the whole idea of sitting on an island and isolating you from the rest of the world to do your thinking, I think it's beautiful. So I can totally relate. And I've written 80% I've written one novel, and I wrote 80% of that on an island in the Philippines. So yeah, I'm all with you.
Okay, well, I'm on the right tracks. Let's just ground for the listeners. What is creativity?
Oh, that's a big one. Well, creativity is a process, I guess we can say. As you said, I've been studying creativity for 25 years. Lately, I've started to make a more philosophical definition of it. To me, creativity is what makes us human. If you think about it, it's actually, what is it that makes humans different from other animals? And I would say one of the biggest things, there are creative animals, but we are by far the most creative animal. And that doesn't just mean that we invent stuff. Creativity is also about what makes us human. I have a friend who once said, Fredrik, what is the most beautiful human feeling? And I said, well, that's love. And he goes, yeah, that's absolutely correct. But what's the second most beautiful feeling, human feeling? And I said, what do you mean? He said, it's having an idea or seeing an idea come to life. And I think he's right. So after love, it's the most profound human, but the most happy we can be is when we are creative. And when we look at it that way, we really should question why we don't do more to develop our own creativity. It improves our lives. It makes us happy. It makes us feel fulfilled. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, I love that. And it's funny. It spurred another memory. We really are aligned. It was about, it's almost 35 years ago. I had started my first business. We were manufacturing natural and organic bath and body care. And we were really forerunners at that time.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into, the store and seeing our first products on the shelf going, that is so cool. It was just unbelievable.
Yes. In the book that you mentioned, the new one, The World of Creativity, I have a phrase that I introduced, which is called the Vidimus moment. The eureka moment is when we have an idea, but the Vidimus moment is the moment when you realize that someone else realizes that your idea is good, which is actually almost a more profound, because when we have the idea within us, it's brilliant, it's beautiful, but we don't know if it's going to work. But the first time we see someone else, get the sparkle in the eye and realize how good this idea is, that's actually almost a more beautiful moment, because that's when you get confirmation that, yeah, I'm on the right track. So that's a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that, going into the store and just seeing, yep, this is going to work.
Oh, and I don't know if you felt this too, but the first time you wrote a book or you spoke about your own thinking, I remember, I'd spoken in front of crowds so many times. I'm not really a nervous speaker. When I was first speaking about my first book, I was so nervous. I thought, what if everybody thinks I'm an idiot? And all these years, all these hours, and as you just said, it's just this. Luckily, obviously, people didn't think I was an idiot. That's a good thing. But did you feel that too the first time that you got up there?
Nah, I didn't. My first book was on the internet in the mid 1990s, and I knew something that virtually no one else in Sweden at the time knew anything about. I knew I was onto something. So I felt like I had a message to people, like, why haven't you seen the internet? I was a young university student who saw the internet and had to get everyone else to understand it too. So no, I was not nervous, but my father was a musician. My mother was a teacher. My father was a musician. You combine those two, you get professional speaker and entertaining educator. And he would put me up on stage when I was 5 years old on his live band, and I would sing a song or two. So, for me, it's very natural to be on the stage.
Well, very good. So let's get back to, so your work is rooted in exploring creativity. You do that across cultures. Why is that so critical?
Well, I think there's there are many reasons. One reason is that, do a comparison to food. Someone called me the Anthony Bourdain of creativity, which I think is the best compliment ever. Because Anthony Bourdain went around the world to study food, but really he did it to study humanity, right? But if you're like him, you're really interested in food, you want to understand how people in different cultures look at food. And you go to Tokyo and you learn about how to treat raw fish. And then you go, to India and you learn about spices. And your understanding of food just expands. And if this is true for food, it's true for any creative endeavor, which means it's true for creativity in itself. So people in different cultures and different countries approach creativity in different ways. And if you're really into creativity, you should study that. That's one of the reasons. And the other reason is that if you want to understand anything, this idea of understanding it from a human perspective gives it a different depth. So not only do I go to 75 different countries, or I have been, but I also interview all kinds of people, like CEOs and heads of innovation, but also, the girls in the slums of Mumbai, or a taxi driver. Like, I want to understand creativity from any aspect, dancers, but also, of course, but also politicians or a plumber. I want to understand it from as many different aspects as possible.
And obviously, I'm guessing the way that the people express creativity from a plumber to a CEO would be different, but at the essence, what do you find? Or an alignment, or a...
It's kind of I was once in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, and I was out I was meeting with the nomads, but then on my way home, I was invited to do a speech for a startup, a tech hub. And I walked into this and I see all these Mongolian startups, and they look their offices look exactly like a tech startup in Stockholm or Berlin or Singapore, or, the little Star Wars figures on the computers and a Nike cap and everything. And I was like, wow, these tech guys, they are exactly the same, no matter where they are. So it's actually, we are more similar from a profession perspective than we are from a cultural perspective, kind of. So you you see that, okay, that's a tech guy, and he's a tech guy everywhere. Or I meet speakers, authors are the same also. They're very similar when it comes to our professions, make us more similar, actually.
Right. Okay. And when you meet these people and you get the startups, you understand what they're doing, they're changing the world. How do we embrace change today as individuals? I mean, we see it happening so quickly, but how do we get on that path, if you will?
So I get that a lot now because the world is changing so quickly now. But this idea of being able to keep up with change we lost that race over 100 years ago. Like, there's no way you could keep up. Who is the last person who's able to keep up with human change? Right? It's impossible. Like, you could go to the Library of Alexandria and you could say, shit, I can't read all of these books in my lifetime. So you have to start picking, which book am I supposed to read? So selecting which information we decide to digest is not new. It's been there forever. So I think, again, creativity. I once interviewed the former minister of tourism in Bhutan. And he said to me, he's Buddhist clearly. So he said, Fredrik, creativity is not about expression. Like in the West, you look at it as self-expression. You're creating something. He said, creativity is an inward journey. It's about understanding yourself. I think it's profound, that it's brilliant. If we look at creativity as a way of truly understanding who we are, the stress is gone, right? It's not about trying to understand every innovation everywhere. It's about getting inspiration to truly discover our own potential, I guess.
So, but there's a difference between, and you touched on at the beginning, understanding or discovering our own potential and realizing it. So how do we move, because true innovation is about realizing in market. How do we realize our potential?
It's a good question. I don't know if this is the answer to the question, but I was once asked to define success. And I defined it as when everyone thinks you've made it, but you just gotten started. And I think potential is, you never reach your potential, right? If you think about it. Because as soon as you reach your potential, there's potential for even more. It's utterly, you can look at Messi and say, he's reached his potential. No, he hasn't. He can become even more creative as a football player. So the whole idea of reaching your potential is kind of it's a fraud. We never reach, we can improve on our potential, but we can never reach it.
I love that. It's funny. My late father, he was an entrepreneur, and I've obviously been an entrepreneur forever. And he used to ask me, how's business? And I always say, we're getting there. Yeah. And it eventually drove him like nuts. He was going, what do you mean you're getting there? You've been at it for decades. I go, well, we're getting there. I got another place to go, or another height to scale now.
One of the people I interviewed in the book, she's a Greek marketing executive, and she defined creativity as a path, as in not the end result, but the path. It's like the journey. Creativity is the journey. Because when you look at it that way, if you suddenly reach a problem, like on your road, you don't care about that problem. All you care about is how to go around that problem so you can continue on your path. And also in that way, when you look at it that way, it doesn't matter if you fail or not, because you're there to learn so that next time you can do something even better. So the creativity is really a journey that we're on. And that's a beautiful way of looking at it.
So when you unleash creativity, especially in the innovation process, I mean, you're opening up yourself to unpredictability. Now, at some point, business needs to become, at the operational level at least, predictable. So what is the balance, or what is the input of creativity to the process of innovation?
Well, yes, I get that question a lot. And I said, it's not a problem. It's not an issue. I've asked way over 1 million people in speeches. I mean, I've spoken to 1 million people, and I asked them in the beginning, do you think that your company is doing enough to develop your creativity? And 98% say no. And then sometimes I'm asked a follow-up question, are you doing enough to develop your creativity? And everyone says no. I mean, it's not like we have this huge amount of super creative people who are coming up with amazing ideas all the time. No. The problem is not that we are too creative. The problem is that we are way less creative than we should be. And then it's not a problem to be too creative. It might be a problem that someone has too many ideas. But as you mentioned, creativity is not having ideas, it's having them and making them come true. And if they come true, per definition, they are in improvement, because creativity is to make the world better in some case. So it's a mirage to think that, the CEO of Volvo once said, we want our people to be creative, but not too creative. I said, that's the most stupid comment from a CEO ever. That's not your problem. The problem is that you have too many people who are not creative enough. That is your problem. And that's true for any company.
So, what was your intention when you started, or when you decided to write The World of Creativity?
I guess because I wanted people to understand how, two things. I wanted people to understand what creativity is, from a profound perspective. And I also wanted the people to understand how many different ways there are to approach creativity, that creativity is not one thing. We all know that in America, you look at creativity as shoot for the stars, go to the moon, moonshot ideas. That's what creativity is. Mm-hmm. And we all know that in Japan, creativity is Kaizen, the small improvements all the time, which are almost opposite approaches to creativity. Or in Sweden, we have Ericsson. It's a big systems, engineering systems. And we have IKEA, which is about making things simple and cheap for the masses. These are utterly different approaches to innovation. We all know it, but it's like a cascade of different approaches to creativity. And when you realize that there's probably 8.5 plus billion ways of approaching creativity. And then the insight becomes, I need to find mine. Most people haven't found their own creativity, so they're trying to copy a general description of what creativity generally is, which is a bit sad actually. It's kind of it's like someone chasing love is what I saw in a movie and then trying to chase that instead of understanding what love really is to me. So finding your own creative process and finding your own creative meaning and your own definition of creativity, that's probably the most meaningful thing you can do.
How does one start on that path though? Because it's one thing to say, find your own meaning of it, but as those individuals said, I'm not, I'm not creative enough for as often as I need to be. I'm sure they also would have said, well, I don't know where to start.
Yeah, that's what I do for a living. So I help people to do that in different ways. A lot of it is inspiration. I've interviewed some of the super creative people, like the 0.1% most creative people. I've interviewed a lot of them. And from a lot of them, it's inspiration. Like you could start there. What inspires me? And if you are a musician, maybe it's other musicians that inspire you to become a musician. And that's where you get your creativity from. I mean, inspiration means to breathe in. That's the literal definition. Inspire, breathe in. But then you can't stop there. You have to go, okay, it's not only what inspires me. I call it creative respiration. Respiration is what happens after you breathe in. It's when the oxygen is turned into useful things in your body. So creative respiration is like asking yourself, what inspires me in a useful way? As in, what inspires me to actually create? And that is a very good place to start. Because it's not enough to be inspired. You need to be inspired to do something. Because creativity is to do.
And so, is there a first step that you can speak to? Is there a first realization that I need to make? Like, what is that?
Because it's an individual process, I guess you're the only one who can answer that. But you could, for example, say this. So what are the 10 best ideas I've ever had in my life? When was I the most creative, in my life? What's the common denominator between these 10 ideas? Or ask ChatGPT to find the common denominator between these. Describe those ideas. What kills your creativity? Where do you feel the least creative? What is the common denominator between those? When do you feel, how is your creative process when you're by yourself? How is your creative process when you are with others? What do other people need to know about your creative process? Okay, I gave you 6-7 questions now. Yep. You answer all of those, put all of that into ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to describe your creative process to you as an outsider, because sometimes it's like cutting your own hair. It's very hard to understand yourself. So if someone else can describe it back to you, you might actually see something you didn't already know.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. And it's something it's funny when I think back now, I think it's something that I did when I spoke about Corsica. I started thinking about, okay, but what are the commonalities to other places that I've written books, written articles, come up with ideas for the businesses that I've launched into the world. And there was that peacefulness, there was water, there was trees, there was whatever. And I seek it out now. And it's funny, I've never put it in the process way that you just described, but I have acted on that process.
Yeah, but as you could kind of see in your whole energy when you're talking about it, pointing it out to yourself, phrasing it, gives you a different understanding. You knew it subconsciously, but you didn't know it consciously like that. So you say, and now you can be more aware of it. For me, my creative process is travel around the world as much as possible, meet as many creative people from as many different aspects as possible. But to do that 6, 7, 8 months per year. And on the other side, sit on my island, don't meet anyone. I'm an introvert. Just sit on my island and think and reflect. And to me, that's the perfect creative process. It took me decades to build a life around that so that I could do exactly this. And for other people, they might look at it and say, oh, that's too much travel for me, or that's too isolated to sit on an island. But for me, it is the perfect creative process. And it makes me not only very creative, it also makes me very happy.
Yeah, I like that. And I understand that we do it individually. What I'm hearing too, and again, something that I do on the innovation side of the human ingenuity side is, a lot of people can't go to a dozen countries a year. We don't have that opportunity. What I'll tell executives a lot is you can learn a lot in the subway, but embrace what I'm saying. Don't take the subway. When I'm in New York, I will walk 50 blocks. Yeah. And then I will jot down what I saw, in stores and people and how they congregate. And I find that sort of inspires me. And I find that making the time, even if you're in a small city or you're whatever, make the time to see what's actually happening. And to your point, question yourself.
Yeah. And also I don't remember the name now, but I have a lot of books about how to write books. And one of them is that they interviewed 100 authors about their writing process. And it is so different. Like one person would wake up, write 10 pages and wouldn't go to bed unless he's written 10 pages. Another person writes 15 minutes a day. Another person said, I'm not going to write unless I have inspiration. I wouldn't write a word for two years and then write a book in 2 weeks. It's like, okay, so what's the process? Well, it totally depends on that person. So don't copy, find your own writing process. Right. I don't write. I'm the last person. I don't write for years. I just collect. And then I said to myself, okay, now it's time to write. And I write 14 hours a day for 2 weeks in a row. And then I take a break and let the text rest for a while. And then I do and that's my process. I know an author in Sweden, he writes 15 minutes every lunch break. He's a lawyer, works as a lawyer, but he takes a 45-minute lunch instead of an hour and writes 15 minutes every day. And he's published a lot of books. That works too. I could never do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I'm very much like you. I will think, and then I will sit down, and sometimes it's 24/7 for days. And my wife knows it's just like, I'm just like, it's gotta come out. It's gotta come out. Anyway, so 37 different countries again, during the process of writing the book. What were some of the things that you picked up that were different or that influenced you profoundly, from the start of what you thought your journey was going to be?
I guess because I've been to 75 countries and introduced thousands of people, the book ended up being 37 countries. And I guess they're all 37 things that profoundly changed how I look at creativity. Mm-hmm. I give you one example because I usually share this one because I think it's beautiful. It's from Thailand. And I interviewed a Thai origami artist. Her name is Kai or Kay. Mm-hmm. And I was asking, we were discussing her creativity. She makes like super beautiful paper flowers. Very serene person. So I met with her and I said, okay, so what happens if you get stuck? And she looked at me like she didn't understand what I was saying. She goes, I go to Starbucks. Okay, so I said, okay, what do you do there? She goes, I drink my coffee. Yeah, okay, good. But like, are you thinking of your process, like your problem? Are you like reflecting on it? She goes, no, I'm just drinking my coffee. Then what I realized by talking to her is that she had no understanding of the concept of creative anxiety. Like it didn't exist to her. And she called it an idea nap, which I think is brilliant. It's like a power nap. So if you're tired, you go and take a power nap. If you have a creative block, you take an idea nap. You just leave it for a while and come back to it. And we all do that, except she didn't have anxiety connected to it. And when I talked to her, I realized this idea of having anxiety around a problem that we have encountered is totally artificial. We don't have to have that. And after meeting her, I don't have creative anxiety anymore. I have creative blocks, but I don't have anxiety around having a creative. You don't have to have that. And she referenced that to the Thai mentality of sabai sabai. Have you been to Thailand?
I haven't.
So in Thailand, sabai sabai is basically it means don't worry, be happy.
Okay.
So for example, you're sitting there in a bar and you're trying, you ordered a beer 20 minutes ago and it hasn't arrived. And you go to the waiter and you go, hey, excuse me, where's my beer? I ordered 20 minutes ago. They just smile and they say, sabai, sabai. The beer will come when the beer will come. And that's their approach to life. And they're very happy because they just say, okay, it will happen. So if you apply that now to your creativity, the next time you get stuck, all you have to say is sabai, sabai. The idea will come when the idea will come. And you just go through that creative process without the anxiety. It's beautiful.
I will try it because unfortunately I don't enjoy her lack of creativity, creative anxiety. That is for sure. So I will definitely try to get there as I'm finishing up the rest of my third. I've been speaking with Fredrik Härén today, a globally recognized author, keynote speaker, and self-described creativity explorer. Our time went really quick, but I do have, Fredrik, one last question, if that works for you. So as creativity continues to shape how we live and work globally, how do you hope your book, The World of Creativity, and your work will influence next generation of thinkers? Because the world is changing.
Oh, I have so many different ways of answering that question. I think the next generation will be the most creative generation ever because they are growing up. Like I saw there's a Swedish kindergarten where they put ChatGPT on voice mode in the kindergarten. And the 5-year-olds, when they have a question, they can go ask the computer. And you have these 5-year-olds that are automatically innate, just keeps asking questions, but they don't suddenly now have an adult that will say, oh, don't ask any more questions. So hopefully they just end up asking question after question after question and realizing that we could just keep asking. But the counter argument of that is when I had children, I got children late. So I was already a creativity expert, but I didn't know anything about children. And my mother's a teacher. So I said to her, how do I raise creative children, Mama? You've met 100,000 kids. So tell me. And she said, this is a brilliant advice. She said, when your child asks a question, never give the answer. Because parents and bosses always want to, someone comes with a problem and they want to help by giving the answer. So creativity is not asking questions. Creativity is asking questions and finding the answer. So if you raise your children by not giving the answer, instead you just say, what do you think? You turn it back to your child. Now the child is going to come up with their own answers and they learn to do that. And I've used that on my children and it's very hard because you really want to help them. But then when they have come up with their own answer, then you give your answer. You still teach them. You just hold back for a few seconds. And I think that if we raise a generation like that, we are going to raise very, very creative people that will ask more questions and find more answers.
Well, that's a great answer to stop on. So Fredrik Härén, thank you so much for joining me on Say Hi to the Future, and best of luck with the world of creativity.
Hey, thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode and you want to support our show, leave us a review and join our mailing list by visiting www.spyder.works. That's SPYDER.works, and subscribe to our channel. leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for listening, and see you all next Friday.